Peace, peace, my peaceful people. Still here kicking it out in nature under the sun. It's a beautiful thing. Very beautiful day. The humidity ain't bad for a change. It's nice out here, right? Alright, so we moving on, right? Continuing with what we doing. And we are at Hexagram 13 Fellowship. Okay, so without further ado, this is a long one, so we're going to get right into it. Let's have it. Here we go. Alright, this is Shekum and Shekum. Hexagram 13, Fellowship with Men. The real title should be Difficulties in the Fellowship with Men. So let's amend the title. You get this hexagram because there are difficulties relating to someone. Someone is having difficulties in the relationship with someone, you with someone, or someone with you. Hence the counsel on how to maneuver in the situation. Of course, there are many hexagrams that deal with such difficulties. Many lines in almost every hexagram deals with some difficulty. This particular hexagram has certain counsel that we will get into. All right, to the text. The image, all right? When you see the image, we're talking about the Wilhelm and Baines book, all right? The I Ching Book of Changes. Okay, so you can look it up. All right. The image. They shooting. Yeah, man, they shooting over there. You know, I live in a gang war infested area. It's like, no, I'm playing. This is not gang war. It's a shooting range over there. They be shooting. I got jokes. All right, look. So the image. Damn, can this actually be done? Can we do this with the shooting in the background? Will this work? All right, let's see how I do. If it gets too crazy, we'll go somewhere else. All right, let's go in though. The image of the upper trigram Qian is heaven, and that of the lower Li is flame. It is the nature of fire to flame up to heaven. This gives the idea of fellowship. All right, shekum shekum. You see that, right? You don't see that. This is what is meant about the way the I Ching has been rendered. He says fire flaming up to heaven is the image of fellowship. You got that, so let's move on. What is the fire flaming to heaven? It's a mnemonic, an image to help you remember the hexagram. Don't forget that when the I Ching first appeared on the scene, you didn't just run to the bookstore and buy a copy of the book. For you to learn I Ching, you had to memorize it. It was an oral tradition. And in an oral tradition, the way to memorize things is by rendering them hieroglyphically through imagery. Sometimes the images sometimes the images does serve as a key, as the symbolism of the meaning, and sometimes it is basically a mnemonic technique. To say that fire flaming to heaven is a symbol of meaning is to overgeneralize. To say that fire flaming to heaven is a symbol of the meaning is to overgeneralize. Fire flaming to heaven is Li, fire, and Qian is heaven. Qian is heaven. If you were throwing the I Ching and didn't have a book, and you got Li under Qian, fire under the heavens, that would help you remember the hexagram. That's how you memorize the hexagrams, through the images. Okay, back to the text. It is the second line that, by virtue of its central character, unites the 5 strong lines around it. Right? The hexagram appears with the 3 lines at the bottom is a straight line, an open line, and a straight line, or a closed line, an open line, and a closed line, which is Li, right? And then 3 straight lines over top of that. So the only open line in the hexagram is hexagram 2. And that's what he's speaking about. So it's hexagram 2 that's gathering the yin line, that's gathering the yang lines about it, right? It's different from hexagram 44, which is like kind of an inferior way of presenting a circumstance like that. It's the bottom line is coming in. But that's another topic. We'll get into that later. I'm doing too much. Here we go. Alright, for the imagery, I had number as a second line virtue. Okay. It is the second line by virtue of its central character, unites the 5 strong lines around it. This hexagram forms a complement to she, the army. In the latter, danger is within and obedience without. The character is the character of a warlike army, which, in order to hold together, needs one strong man among the many who are weak. Right? Okay, so that's the general in the midst of the army, right? The general is the strong man. He's giving the orders. The ones who are weak are the army, right? So I had to explain that because the army looks like, when you see the army, you think, yeah, yang, we the army, we this, is used for, is used like kind of ignorantly as a way of saying strength, but it's actually the meaning of the hexagram is that you are obeying, right? Like an army obeys the general, right? So it's like, it's not the strongest circumstance. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's why he's saying the strong man is the one who is at the center, kind of giving the orders, and everybody else just have to say, sir, yes, sir. You know what I mean? So it's not so strong to have to say, sir, yes, sir. That's kind of, a kind of way to put it, so to say. It's basically, you could think, all kinds of wild stuff that this general, who this little dude trying to tell me, yes, sir, yes, sir. You know what I'm saying? You still got to say, sir, yes, sir. You know what I mean? And do what he said, because you don't own yourself in an army. So, all right, that's that. And we already went through the army, so y'all know a little something about that already. All right, in the latter, danger is within, right? Talking about the army. In the latter, danger is within and obedience without, the character of a warlike army, which, in order to hold together, needs one strong man among many who are weak. Here, clarity is within and strength without, right? Li on the bottom, Chien over top, strength over top of Li, clarity, okay? The character of a peaceful union of men, which, in order to hold together, needs one yielding nature among many firm persons. Okay, so it's a different, situation, right? It's a similar circumstance where you have the one individual, but this time, this one individual possesses a weak quality, or not necessarily a weak, but a yin quality. One that is of inclusion, of others. So it's like a sharing type of thing, right? Where, if it's going to be fellowship, if it's something that's going to endure, then the other personalities have to be strong about, whatever it is that we're gathering for the purpose of, right? So that's what, that's basically referring to. The oracle is saying here that in order for the difficulties in the fellowship with men described in the 13th hexagram, because you can't generalize to say that wherever there are difficulties with men, there needs to be one yielding among all unyielding. Because in the 6th hexagram, you have difficulties in the fellowship with men. In the 34th hexagram, you have difficulties in the fellowship with men. In the 54th hexagram, you have difficulties, etc. So in the difficulties that are symbolized, 13th hexagram, the way out is to be yielding. One must be yielding. To yield is to be receptive to counsel. To yield is to listen to the other person. Truly listen to the other person. To yield is not necessarily to be yin in the sense that you are going to be tractable and malleable by other people. It is not to give up your individuality or to give up your position or not to think or whatever. it means to listen attentively and truthfully and truly to the other person and give the other side an honest hearing. That's what is meant by being yielding. Here we have clarity within and strength without. In the next class that follows, we'll talk about this situation of clarity within and strength without. Right? That's going to be let me run that back because I'm not sure what we're saying here. Here we have clarity within and strength without. In the next class that follows, we will talk about a situation of clarity within and strength without. Okay. One of the problems with the if the I Ching is, I think it's with the I Ching, is that its language is too schematic. It says clarity within and strength without, instead of really explaining to the point with what it needs to explain. Clarity within and strength without is very abstruse way of saying. When I say abstruse, I mean it is a way of saying something that requires a translator. What is being said here is that what should prevail within is freedom from domination by your sensations, the sensual part of your being. What is within should be calmness, peacefulness, like my peaceful peoples do. Right? And freedom from emotional domination. That is what's meant by clarity and strength without. Okay? And the sweat glands is opening up like a mug because it's mad hot. Actually, when I sat down, it was cloudy. Clouds was forming up there, so it was a little bit, doing a different thing here. Slightly. But we're going to work it out. We're going to work it out, Jack. Y'all I gotta pause for this here white thing. Ooh, summertime. Beautiful thing. Alright. So, here we start here. Here we have clarity within. Right, you said that. Okay, abstruse, right, with the translator and stuff. Okay. Sensual part of the being. That is what's meant by clarity and strength without. Everybody has some emotional and sensorial reaction in given situations. You feel this energy reactions to different situations. And if you have not learned to keep these energies from controlling you, then these energies will dictate your actions, your thoughts, etc. You are working with somebody and they do something wrong and you feel that energy rise up within you. And that energy suggests to you that you ought to now act and react towards that person. And that suggestion from that energy is never a correct suggestion because it is coming from the lower part of your being, from the blind part of your being, from the devil part of your being, the animal part of your being, and cannot be the guide to your actions. And since it is a force, that's why we say strength or the force should be without, not within. Okay, force should be without, not within. There should be easy within, force without. Okay, something like that. All right. What should be within you is clarity. Clarity is a symbol for truth. The clarity is really what spiritual truth have you learned about how you should function in difficult situations. What should you follow? What you should follow is the truth, not your feelings. Running back. What should be within you is clarity. Clarity is a symbol for truth. The clarity is really what spiritual truth have you learned about how you should function in difficult situation. What what you should follow is the truth and not your feelings. That is the correct rendering of clarity within and strength without. It should say your actions should be guided by truth, not feelings. Okay, the judgment. Fellowship with men in the open, success. Shekna. That was the text, Shekna. The judgment here means that for you to succeed in the fellowship with men, as indicated by this hexagram, you must do everything in the open. There should be no secret designs. Whatever takes place between you and the other people should always be in the open. You must let your feelings be known. If you cannot let your feelings be known, then you are not going to have fellowship. You feel one way but act another way. That's what we are talking about here. Let your feelings be known. If you can't let them be known, then change them. Then oppose them if you want fellowship. Whatever you do, do it in the open. What you do with person A, you must do with person B, C through Z. There must be not any secret designs, no segregative things at work. Then you will have success. To the text. It furthers one to cross the great water. Perseverance of the superior man furthers. Says Shekha. To cross the great waters, when you get this hexagram, there are difficulties. But when it says it furthers one to cross the great waters, the oracle is saying that there are difficulties, but one should deal with them. The great waters is a symbol of difficulties. Sometimes the oracle tells you to stay back, don't plunge in, don't attempt to do anything. It is not a time for it yet. But when you get it favors to cross the great waters, the oracle is telling you that you have difficulties, but you must tackle them. And then the lines will tell you how to quickly proceed. How quickly to proceed. How far you can expect to go, etc. The perseverance of the superior man furthers means that you are going to have to be persevering because there are going to be obstructions, difficulties, obstacles that you have to meet. So you have to be persevering. So if you are a person who discourages easily, then take some remedies. True fellowship among men must be based upon a concern that is universal. Here, ground rules are laid down for you to unite yourself with somebody. Ask yourself, am I having difficulties with this person, or I am having difficulties with this person? Do we have in common the fundamental principle? We must analyze the situation, or you must analyze the situation. Is what most important to me most important to that person? Is it not just simply a question of some common point? That common point must also be based on truth. It is not the private interest of the individual that create lasting fellowship amongst men, but rather the goals of humanity. Okay, back to Shekel. All right, run it back. The text. It is not the private interest of the individual that creates lasting fellowship among men, but rather the goals of humanity. To Shekel. Here you are being instructed to learn what the truths are, and you are, run it back. Here you are being instructed to learn what the truths are, and you and the people that are working together must come together based upon the universal truths, not your personal feelings, opinions, not your conditionings. Here, by mirror reflection, you are being shown the cause of the problem in the fellowship with men. You're holding to your own opinions, your conditionings, or maybe it is the other person, or maybe the other person is. So when people hold on to their conditionings and their feelings and their opinions, etc., then you can't come together. You can't come together when everybody, you can come together when everybody is holding on to universal truths. Okay, so that's one of the difficulties with fellowships with men, right? You say, we're all going to get together to do this or to be this way or in the name of this. But then internally, somebody or a few people have another idea, you know what I mean? Or, aren't so serious about that fundamental principle, and that will cause difficulties. All right, so, okay, that is why it is said that fellowship with men in the open succeeds. If unity of this kind prevails, even difficult, dangerous tasks such as crossing the great water can be accomplished. Here you're being told to make the situation work or to undertake something great with other people. Fellowship must be based on universal truth. And what is it that you want to accomplish must be based on universal truths. In other words, let's say you get this reading because you have a problem with your mate concerning where you should go on your vacation. Then you are talking about your feelings, your conditionings, and not about some universal truth. The solution is to move as close as possible as you can to a universal truth, or a commonality in what you are talking about with someone else or in a group. Okay, but back to the text. But in order to bring about this sort of fellowship, a persevering and enlightened leader is needed. A man with a clear, convincing, that should be convincing, it's a typo, convincing and inspiring aims and the strength to carry them out. The inner trigram clarity, the outer trigram strength. Back to Shechem. So whenever you get the 13th hexagram, you are dealing with a situation where you have to sit down with the sage, because this is one of those hexagrams that is beyond the mental faculties beneath the second sphere of the tree of life. Okay? Second sphere is way up here. Everything else is way down here. So the sage is necessary. Sage sits at sphere 2. Okay? This is what Shechem is telling you here. Usually the problems with the 13th hexagram requires an enlightened person to really be able to resolve the personal differences and see how the two people can come together at some common point based on truth without violating each other. Most often it requires showing one person that you are wrong and the other person, most often it requires showing one person that you are wrong and the other person is right, or both of you are wrong, which is the most often the case. But that requires somebody who has good insight and good wisdom and can get that message across to the people so that the people comprehend it and do not feel violated. The 13th hexagram is a very difficult hexagram to deal with, and it is disastrous to try and deal with it on your own. The sage is a source of clarity. Okay, to the text. The image. Heaven together with fire. The image of fellowship with men. Thus the superior man organizes the clans and makes distinctions between things. Heaven has the same direction of movement as fire, yet it is different from fire. Just as the luminaries in the sky serve for the systematic division and arrangement of time, so human society and all things that are really belong together must be organically arranged. To Shechem. The oracles now goes on to give insight on the man who is going to give counsel. It gives you the insight on how his mind functions. He is just not simply coming from his opinions. The man who will counsel you will be coming from his knowledge of organic factors that creates differences in roles and places them for things in the world. A man who knows the true purpose and time placement and time placement and space placement and function of things. Because there is a law that organizes things in the world and gives each thing its time and place, its point in space, etc. So this man is coming from that perspective. He knows the secrets of nature, the secrets of heaven, and is using these principles as his guide to tell you this, to tell you that this is what should be done, and this is what should not be done. This is how one should think about it. This is how one should feel about it, etc. This is just to give you a bird's eye glimpse into mental process of a counselor. Right. Back to the text. Fellowship should not be a mere mingling of individuals or of things that would be chaos, not fellowship. Fellowship should not be a mere mingling of individuals or of things that would be chaos, not fellowship. If fellowship is to lead to order, then there must be organization within diversity. Back to Shekel. This is a bird's eye view again, to let you know that the coming together of people is not just based on your vibes to one another. Most people come together with others based on that vibe. I have a spontaneous like for you, so here we are. I have an immediate dislike for you, so there we are. You over there and me over here. That kind of thing. Or it is not based on your opinions or opinions about this person or that person. There are many objective factors at work. Okay. All right, going into the lines. To the text. Pardon me. 9 in the beginning. Fellowship with men at the gate. No blame. The beginning of union among the people should take place before the door. All are equally close to one another. No divergent aims have yet arisen, and one makes no mistakes. The basic principle of any kind of union must be equally accessible to all concerned. Right? The basic principles of any kind of union must be equally accessible to all concerned. Secret agreements bring misfortune. Skeeters is here. Okay. All right. There are basically two themes at work. The first one is that the beginning of union among people should take place before the door. All are equally close to one another. No divergent aims have yet arisen, and one makes no mistakes. This is to say that the people coming together must be brought about without any preconceived ideas about this person and that person. It must be brought about without any influence from one's feelings, those vibrations. That's the true meaning of this line. It must be brought about through some objective means. It says the basic principle of any kind of union must be equally accessible to all concerned. So what is the basic principle of all union that could be equally accessible to everyone? The oracles. Meaning, in the first line, you are given guide to an oracle on how to be friends with people. Run it back. Meaning, in the first line, you are giving guide to an oracle, by an oracle, on how to be friends with people. You go to the oracles, should I befriend this person? Of course, the focal point of the answer is not yes or no, but counsel on what you need to look out for in befriending this person. The oracle might say, something. Might be fantastic. It might be a riot. It might be wicked because of so and so. So now you know what to work on, and where there are difficulties, then go slow on that friendship, as opposed to just simply vibing with each other. Oftentimes you vibe with people and you do each other wicked things. The oracle says here that it must be based on some means accessible to all people. Yeah, and that's kind of deep. It's like, lots of times we don't think about going to the oracles when we want to be close to somebody else or partner with somebody else. I had a situation where I was talking to a guy who was, he had inroads to, well, I should say he used to have inroads to, the stock market. He was a market maker on the stock market, things like that. And we were supposed to partner about some things. And I went to the Oracle and asked about that. And, just to, is this a situation that I could kind of really look to? And it was like an Osir Tem reading. And it was like, wow, like at that point, like well before whatever the conflict occurred, before the related details of this, keynote were visible, I was able to understand how this would go down, you know what I mean? And it was weird. It was like, cause there was some level of fellowship, right? Or so I thought, right? Turns out this guy was a racist. He was a racist guy. He had real funny attitudes about things. And, it was funny because I happened to be talking to somebody else about the Moors. And I realized, I realized the shade that this guy was turning because of that. Here you have a white person who was mad at me because I know about the Moors. You know what I mean? That's obviously that's a racist individual. That's somebody who, he has a problem with me knowing something about our history, right? Because the Moors, in Europe that was a time when the white man was kind of down. Not kind of down, basically we ruled, and they've minimized it. They try to say, oh, the Moors of Spain? Nah, it was the Moors of Europe, bro. Go look it up. But anyway, it was like, but I saw in advance Osir Tem. This guy ain't gonna like me after a minute. You know what I mean? And and it was I remember being like having a kind of a disappointment, like, wow, dag, you know what I mean? Because they do, it was like the discourse was cool. You know what I mean? We had a good back and forth, and it was a plan to do something. And it was like, Osir Tem, this ain't gonna happen. And it was like, dang, really? You know what I mean? And that's kind of like, now I got the burden of understanding the future now. And, I just let it play out. I just, okay, I just acknowledge what it is and keep it moving. And yeah, like say I took that line and I tried to be like, real conscious about how I was coming off so that there wouldn't be no, I didn't do any of that. I just lived regularly, and the circumstance happened to be me involved in a conversation with someone else, which this guy was overhearing and making attitudes about. So so it happened without me trying to not stave it off, you know what I'm saying? To not have it happen. It happened. It was, the oracle was there. So yeah, man. Necessary, to do readings on your stuff, you know what I mean? I don't know, like it seems like a lot of people have this attitude of, well, let me just do it, you know what I mean? Not really, asking about it. Let me not ask about it or whatever like that. But I'm like, if you know that you're dealing with a high-level oracle and it speaks the truth, then, why not ask? You know what I mean? You kind of like, it's actually a shield, a protection to kind of ask, because, had I been going into that thing hunky-dory with this guy, I wouldn't have noticed the changes in his behavior. You know what I'm saying? I was able to understand the changes in his behavior and then relate things back to the reading. It was like, okay, yeah. So it was just a way of having more insight. See, I'm a Jupiterian, so that's me, as, Duanate. All right, let's keep it moving. Where we at here? Yeah. Okay, so solution closer to blah, blah, blah. But in order to bring about this sort of fellowship of persevering, right, we said that stuff, right? And we said all of that stuff. Okay, organisms be based on accessible to all people. Right, okay. As opposed to simply vibing on each other. Oftentimes, you vibe with people and you do each other wicked things. The oracle says here it must be based upon some means accessible to all people. All right, if I go to the oracles to select my friends, then each and every body is equally accessible to me. They have access to me. The oracles would never say, keep this person 3 inches away and this person 3 miles, etc. But equal access means I give each person equal consideration as opposed to having a spontaneous liking for this person over here, a spontaneous dislike for this person, and that's the way it is. I just happen to have started talking to this person over here, and I don't like the way this person over here dresses, etc. And then it says, secret agreements bring misfortune. Meaning, if you want to have fellowship with people, you must not have agreements with some people that you don't have with other people. In a situation where you should have the same agreements. Let me run the whole thing back. and then it says, secret agreements bring misfortune. Meaning, if you want to have fellowship with people, you must not have agreements with some people that you do not have with others. In a situation where you have the same agreements with everybody, those agreements must hold true for everyone. I must not say to the first one that we will go into this partnership with the second one and we will split the pot 3 ways and we stand to make 300,000, and I say to the second one that we are really going to make 600,000. It shouldn't be that way. Got it. All right. Second line. Fellowship with men in the clan. Humiliation. Fellowship with men in the clan. Humiliation. There is danger of forming a separate faction on the basis of personal and egoistic interests. What are personal and egoistic interests? Your spontaneous like for this person and dislike for that person. What the person over here can do for you when you happen to like the way the other person dresses or talks, or your vibrations for them or whatever. This is a clan. You have formed a clan. You must have fellowship with everyone. And according to the oracles will tell you how much that fellowship can be. The degree of fellowship may differ from people to people by the oracles. Okay? Right, because the oracle sees things that you don't. These people over here might be on this, so you must be like this, versus these people over here are like this. But once you base it on egotistical or personal interests, let me be friends with this person over here because they might come into some money, or they know a lot of Kabbalah and I want to know Kabbalah and they can teach me, so let me befriend that person. When you get into these things, when you get into these kinds of things at work, there's going to be trouble. Okay? Back to the text. Such factions that are exclusive and instead of welcoming all men, must condemn one group in order to unite the others, originate from low motives, and therefore lead in the course of time to humiliation. Okay? So that's self-explanatory. The second line is all about, developing fellowship within the fellowship, right? Factioning off and fellowshipping with these people over here based upon, or this person over here, based upon some personal affinity or whatever the case. Not necessarily even an affinity, but, separate factions, talking about within the group, is not cool. All right? Such factions that are exclusive and instead of welcoming all men must condemn one group in order to unite the others, originate from low motives. Also, this is like the Klan, right? The Ku Klux Klan, or, some, group that links based on their hatred of somebody else. This would be a second line situation in fellowship with men, right? Okay, 9 in the third place. He hides weapons in the thicket. He climbs the high hill in front of it. For 3 years, he does not rise up. Here, fellowship has changed about to mistrust. Each man distrusts the other. Back to Shechem. From my experience, yes, when you get this line, there is mistrust, but it does not always follow that both people mistrust each other. Oftentimes, it is one person, one party mistrusting the other. To the text, plans a secret ambush and seeks to spy on his fellow from afar. To Shechem. Here we have a situation where the person might be spying to see what you are doing wrong. See what you are doing wrong. Ambush. There are some people who, once they fall out with somebody else, are constantly just watching and looking and waiting for that person to make a mistake so they can go and point out that person to their mistake, or their errors. In this reading, the person who is really worse off is the person who is just sitting down watching and on guard to catch you in making a mistake. That person is in the worst spiritual condition than the person who may make the mistake against having said that one should not do what they did. I'll get that. That person is in the worst spiritual condition than the other person, right? It's saying, basically, in a nutshell, it's saying that if you so goofy that you want to sit there and, all right, let's see what this person going to do now, or what this person doing today. You know what I mean? You watching somebody, waiting for somebody to make a mistake so you can be, you're at a low spiritual condition. You need better things to do. Because how about that person's think about them and you think about that person, right? Maybe you should be diverting some of that energy to thinking about yourself. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, well, that's somebody who's shallow. They got their mind concerned on some individual, right? Y'all see I'm talking about this. It's obviously my situation for some time now, but we ain't going to talk about me. We talking about this. All right, okay, so here we have the situation where the person might be spying to see, right, we said that stuff, right? That person is in the worst spiritual condition than the person who may make the mistake against having said that one should not do what they did. I might say we should not eat so-and-so. Then I fall out with you. Then 2 months from now, I break down and feel weak. And I give in to the chocolate Jones and I go eat a chocolate. Right? So that's his example, is the chocolate. I go eat the chocolate. The person is just waiting for me, watching, spying on me, on their guard, constantly watching to see if I would do something wrong, finally caught me. Yes, Shechem ate the chocolate. Right, it's funny. All right. On the scale of values represented here, this person is worse off. Oftentimes, many of you pledge not to do something after battling with your elementars, after battling with that little demon for 2 or 3 weeks or months or whatever, it gains the upper hand, and there you are buying a chocolate. You lost a little spiritual battle with the little demon inside of you. You will meet again. That little demon is doomed for destruction. Right? You are going to get it together. Right? You know that you are never going to get in the habit of going back again, even if you have to fight several battles. I know that many of you are on your 1,000th battle. You know that in giving up certain things, you have to fight many battles, and you know that often you lost the battle here and there. You know that for a fact. So if you are truly sincere and determined to whip that elementor elementar, there is really no great shame in having lost the battle. There are many people who go back on their pledges to themselves and that they would do right, are oftentimes very sincere about what they want to do, but they have a weak moment. Okay? But the person who sits down and waits for you day in, day after, week after week, month after month, and catch you doing something wrong is worse off, because that person has hatred in his heart. And what's worse, that person too is guilty of the same thing, of having his or her weak moments. They are subject to the same periodic battles in trying to get themselves together. But they will hide that from themselves and go, I caught you doing wrong, and will tell Tom, Dick, and Harry that they caught you doing wrong. This is worse, right? This is what it means by laying ambush. People who are just looking to see if they can catch you doing something wrong, or listening while you are on the telephone. They eavesdrop, or you leave the house and they go into your books to see if you have a readings laying around, etc. Yeah, man. That's sticky territory. You don't want to mess with nobody's readings, man. You know what I'm saying? Especially dealing with Menunitaire. You know what I mean? That's relationship with you and God. And those spirits see you, Heru is watching you, Heru Tehuti, Offset, they all watching you, looking over somebody's readings. And they know what's going on, and there's going to be something to pay about that. Because that's not cool. That's not cool. All right. And I want to tell you something. Anyone who goes looking, here we go. Anyone who goes looking for people's readings, or finds someone's readings and takes the time out to read it, you are incurring serious spiritual harm. Because when a person goes and reads on themselves, that information is protected by the spirits, because that person is talking to God. They can't talk to you. God is giving the person the right answer, the right direction. And what do? You want to find out the person's weaknesses so you can have something against that person. Don't do that. And worse yet, the Book of Charms. Each one of you should have a book where you keep a record of your readings. You should have a kind of household where you can put your Book of Charms anywhere in the house and nobody will dare look into that book. It is very good spiritual exercise. Love God. But if you have this nasty habit of looking into somebody's readings, you should begin to learn the wisdom of fearing God. It is not that I'm saying that you should want to fear God, but keep doing wrong, you will learn to fear God. Okay, putting down the law, he's trying to let you know, keep it up. You'll have a situation. All right? Question regarding Sebek in this line. Answer. If you are behaving this way, Sebek has to handle it. That's for sure. He is probably the main author behind inspiring you to such foolish acts. And that is a very good point, because people who function this way think they are getting some advantage by knowing what the other person is doing. And Sebek is the one who would author or inspire something like this. Don't forget that when Sebek is inspiring something, he really doesn't want you to do it. But he hooked it up so good for you. No, he hooked it up so good for you. He makes a master spy out of you or whatever just to tempt you. It is temptation. He makes you so good, and something that you can do, I'm tripping. He makes you so good and something that you can do it. if you feel like you can do it without getting caught, there is the temptation, right? Yeah, I just wrote a post that was it was saying like how people come into each other's midst and they give each other tests and lessons, and sometimes the test of someone who would do someone harm is, you know, the ability to do it. What do you do just because you have the carte blanche? Do you take the advantage? Do you take the power advantage over someone just because you can? Well, you know, that's an untrustworthy person. You know, that's somebody, you know, you don't want to give them too much access because, you know, they're going to take the liberties. They're not going to be, you know, someone who has discretion or uses their power within a certain level of discretion. So, yeah, that seems to be talking on that line. Right, it is temptation. We are dealing, to the text, we are dealing with an obstinate opponent whom we cannot come at by this method. Obstacles standing in the way of fellowship with others are shown here. One has mental reservations for one's own part and seeks to take his opponent by surprise. This very fact makes one mistrustful, suspecting the same wiles of his opponent and trying to ferret them out. The result is that one departs further and further from true fellowship. The longer this goes on, the more alienated one becomes. To Shekel, this is very powerful counsel here. On the most abstract level, the truth of this line is that the person who might tend to spy on the other person to catch the other person in doing wrong in ambush or whatever usually suspects that the other person is doing the same thing. This oftentimes is incorrect, is wrong. The mistrust that one has in this reading is oftentimes not justified. It comes from one's own mistaken view. So someone makes a mistake here. You get this line, it's likely you're making a mistake in assuming that someone is mistrustful, so you're taking liberties of, you know, that you would take in that circumstance. And sometimes it's just an excuse to take liberties, you know what I mean? If you that unscrupulous a person, you're going to sebek yourself like that, right? Okay. It comes from the mistaken point of view. But whatever be the case, whether one is justified or not in trusting the other person, there is not justification in spying on or trying to catch the other person or whatever, because all you are doing is creating more of a problem. The solution to this problem of the third line is to befriend, is to make friends. And of course, the 13th hexagram requires for you to come to counsel, especially that third line. R. Okay, yeah. Third line, right? The conflictual circumstance, right? Okay, so all right, 9 in the 4th line. He climbs up his wall. He cannot attack. Good fortune. Here, reconciliation that follows quarrel moves nearer. It is true that there are still dividing walls on which we stand confronting each other, but the difficulties are too great. We get into straits, and this brings us to our senses. We cannot fight, and therein lies our good fortune. Right? So there's a change in the circumstance here at line 4. Right? Here you have difficulties with someone, and things have gotten so complicated, so messy, that you cannot see any advantage in continuing the fight. You can't see it your way. That advantage that you thought that you would have has been lost. Things are becoming too messy and too complicated, and the oracle says this is good fortune, because now you're blowing it. So what you should be doing is working on reconciliation. So, you know, you climb so far apart that you realize that, yo, I'm tripping. You know what I mean? I'm going too far with this. So you move back. You're moving back to a better fellowship. Right? right? You're blowing it, right? Da, 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 da. Right? Whatever your difficulties are with somebody, on the fourth line, back off. Concentrate on making friends. Drop the matter. That is the counsel of the fourth line. All right. Line, back to the text. Nine in the fifth place, right? Nine. The nine is a straight line, right? It's a straight line. It's actually stressed, right? It's 9 because it's 3, 3, and 3, right? The value. This is a long conversation I probably shouldn't be having right now, but it's talking about the constructing of the pyramid, of the hexagram, which uses numbers at various times. Long story, another time. 9 in the fifth place. Men bound in fellowship first weep and lament, but afterwards they laugh. After great struggles, they succeed in meeting. Two people are outwardly separated, but in their hearts they are united. They are kept apart by their positions in life, shekem, or some other external factor. Right? So it doesn't have to be kept apart by their positions in life. They could be kept apart by people gossiping about somebody. You got somebody who's, they're talking stuff about this guy over here, and now you don't want to link with that person. Well, at some point you link anyway because there's an inner affinity. There's some reason for you guys to connect. And then it usually will come out that was a lie, and then y'all can have fellowship. So at first y'all were weeping, and now y'all are having joy, right? To the text. Many difficulties and obstructions arise between them and cause them grief. But remaining true to each other, they allow nothing to separate them. And although it costs them a severe struggle to overcome the obstacle, they will succeed. When they come together, their sadness will change to joy. Confucius says about this line, life leads the thoughtful man on the path of many windings. Now the course is checked. Now it runs straight again. Here winged thoughts must be shut away in silence. But when two people are one in their inmost hearts, they shatter even the strength of iron or of bronze. And when two people understand each other in their inmost hearts, their words are sweet and strong, like the fragrance of orchids. To shekel. Not necessarily. Eventually it will be. When people are strong in their inmost hearts, what it means here is that that's not dyslexia, that's like prelexia. Like, I'm seeing the stuff. All right, anyway. It's not the kind of thing where people say we want the same things out of life. We both want this corporation. We both want to be in this set. That is not the kind of being one in the depths of your heart. Unity here comes from a great love, a strong love, or something strong. Right? Strong emotional attachment. That's what we're talking about here. Some irrational force that defies all logic and all rationality. By all logic, the way that you carry on like cats and dogs, they should be 1,000 miles away from each other. That is why it says a force. It's an emotion that holds them together, or some ancestral bond, or some spiritual bond. Probably the two of them pledged to be together, partners, husbands and wives, or whatever kind of partnership that they have. They probably pledged before they came to Earth, or in some past incarnation or whatever. Here we are talking about some force, not a consciously recognized ideal, such as we are both Democrats, etc. It is an irrational force. When I say irrational, I mean nothing that you can rationalize verbally. The governing line tells you that ultimately what binds people together is force. Truth itself is a force. What we have here is the force that is binding together. Right? So at the fifth line, we are bound by a force, right? Force. The fifth line, You know, we have issues, but we got to get together anyway because there's this force between us, right? Truth itself is a force. Here we have issue with the force of better. And of course, you can put that force on different levels. And it need not be truth, because I've seen people who are quote unquote in love with each other get this line, and we have all kinds of arguments. There are some people who have an attachment to each other that weathers all kinds of fights and difficulties. Right. So we've seen that, right? All right, moving on to the text. 9 at the top, right? The top line, sixth line in the hexagram. Fellowship with men in the meadow, no remorse. The warm attachment that springs from the heart is lacking here. We are by this time actually outside of the fellowship with others, however we ally ourselves with them. The fellowship does not include all, but only those who happen to dwell near one another. The meadow is the pasture at the entrance of the town. And at this stage, the ultimate goal of union of mankind has not yet been attained. But we need not reproach ourselves. We join in the community without separate aims of our own. To Shekel. Here we have a situation where there is fellowship, a gathering, a coming together of people, but the warmth of the heart is not there. The oracle is saying to you, don't worry about it, because warmth of the heart is something that will come by nourishing a relationship one another. You can't nourish a relationship with one another if you aren't together to start with. This is a situation where a lack of warmth. It is a lack of warmth. It's the situation of a lack of warmth. It is a lack of warmth that does not include everyone. It says we are by this time actually outside of the fellowship with others. However, we ally ourselves with them. What is meant here, to put it accurately, is that here is a group of people. You have a warmth of heart, the emotional reaction to some people, but not for others. You ally with those with whom you don't have this warmth, right? So it's like you know, even though it's not warm, y'all here for a reason, so you get together anyway, right? That is the main focus of this top line. People that don't have this warmth, you ally yourself with them just the same. Right. Then the key line is, at this stage, the ultimate goal of the union of mankind has not yet been attained, but we need not reproach ourselves. We join the community without separate aims of our own. The oracle is saying that one of the problems why there is a lack of warmth, a universalization of this warmth towards everybody, is that people involved in the situation have not yet realized within their understanding the unifying principles of mankind. The top line is very lofty ideal, meaning that for you to manifest the principle of the top line, you need to have realized, or the people that you are working with need to realize, the higher ideals of mankind. In other words, selflessness, right? There are still selfish things at work here. People have not grown into selflessness. And the oracle says that you need not reproach yourself for that, because your selflessness is something that will grow as a result, and is not a requisite for being in the group. Okay? It will grow as a result of being in the group. Reproaching for not being selfless is like reproaching yourself for being 9 years old and not being able to procreate. Okay, good example. I get that. Nah, I mean, okay. So, question: 13th hexagram in answer to a health situation. Answer: I don't want to get into specific applications. Those are things that we can deal with on a one-on-one basis. But for a quick explanation, if you get it on your health, when you are selfish and you have problems with people, the tensions, etc., it makes you ill. Okay? Okay. All right? Receiving this line about a health situation is saying like, hey, you're acting in a selfish way and it's making you ill. Interesting. All right, moving on. When you ask on your health very often, the I Ching identifies those problems in your living, in your relationship with others. Your mistakes on how you handle the affairs in life that creates tensions and makes you ill. Okay? The I Ching goes to the source of those errors in living that causes illness. The problems that you have with the I Ching when you have to deal with health is that you are conditioned by Western culture to think of causes of illnesses in terms of organic functions. You want to find out if your heart is pumping too fast or too slow, or if your blood pressure is too high, etc. But you still have to ask the question, why is it that way? Right? The I Ching will say, because this problem you have with this person over here, or you're constantly having problems because you don't know how to make friends with people. You are always running into problems with people, which causes tensions, etc., and that's what makes you sick. You might need to get some immediate thing, but once you master the situation, you begin to treat your friends better and begin to eliminate your fellowship problem. Then you cool out and your blood pressure will drop, or whatever is organically wrong with you will begin to heal itself. Or you will at least create underlying situation to make the remedies effective. Don't forget that when you take remedies, your emotional situation can counteract that remedy. Okay? If you are taking something to reduce your blood pressure, but the emotional state that led to the illness is still being persevered in, so you are building up on one hand and spending it with the next hand. And that's what the I Ching is trying to tell you. It identifies your errors in living, the forces, because every approach to life in is a particular energy situation. You create a particular energy tension in that particular energy state of your being. Tension is one of your major universal sources of illness, because it just cuts off the flow of force, right? Life force, the flow of blood, the flow of nervous force, right? The flow of nervous force. I'm just going to say nerves, right? Nervous force. It cuts off the flow of vitality on a very basic level. The I Ching identifies the source of tensions in your life. All right. I Ching is deep, y'all. Deep stuff. All right. Okay. Question line 3, Chu and Sherelle. Answer. Go to the text. Chu and Sherelle, line 3. These persons are seeking unity without sincerity. They have only hidden their weapons and will retrieve them when they want. They climb up a hill to look around for the most likely group to join. The truly superior man does not seek others, rather he waits and lets others seek him. That sentence, the truly superior man does not seek others, rather waits and lets others seek him, is an unqualified statement. The line has to deal more with seeking fellowship with sincerity, and it has to do with how to seek fellowship. By way of completion, it is a question also of the proper circumstances will suggest to themselves that at the same time, if you want to get into some active fellowship with somebody, you should go to the oracles and at all times to find out how to relate to this person. I'm going to read that back because I chopped it all up. All right, that sentence, the truly superior man does not seek the other, rather he waits unless others seek him, is an unqualified statement. The line has to deal more with seeking fellowship with sincerity, and it has to do with how you seek the fellowship. By way of completion, it is a question also of the proper circumstances will suggest to themselves, but at the same time, if you want to get into some active fellowship with somebody, you go to the oracles at all times to find out how you need to relate to this person. Because one of the biggest problems in this society is that many of you just vibe on somebody and then you find out that you are harmed by that person. Interesting ring. Yeah. And that's the end. From there he goes into Hexagram 25. Alright, so yeah, that's the end. Yeah, so basically that top line, right? There's a lot of words and some of them, the message is a little bit skewed by my reading of this conversation or this monologue. Basically, the line is saying, you're at a point in fellowship where there's a lack of warmth to drive the fellowship, but you stay in it anyway, and you continue to go ahead and have the fellowship, and, the warmth develops, or the, whatever it is, right? On one hand, it could be the warmth. On the other hand, it could be the knowledge of the principles that relate to coming together and staying together, etc. And that these things will grow by persevering in the friendship, etc. So y'all get me. Y'all understand what I'm saying. So yeah, man, that's it. All right, that is it for now. All right, and yeah, I might not come back tomorrow, but I'm gonna be back. You know how we do. All right, so yeah, back at it. Trying to make good on my word. You know what I mean? We going to finish this I Ching. We here. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? They shooting because they know. All right, so yeah, we're gonna finish this. I just got to do it in my time. But, yeah, come back and get this knowledge. This is when, like, if you guys don't have access to these materials, which I'm certain you don't have access to this, because this is just very rare. Yeah, man, you can come and get some of this insight to, help your readings out. So do that. All right. And, yeah, man, I'm going to get in some of this, sun, get my chill on. And I'm going to see y'all next time. All right, y'all. Peace and love.